Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're venturing into a topic that's thankfully seeing a bit more light these days, anal sex positions.
Mm-hmm.
Our guide for this exploration is Tristan Taormino's The Anal Sex Position Guide, the best positions for easy, exciting, mind-blowing pleasure. That came out in 2009.
Right, yeah. And it's worth noting, this book, it sort of built upon her earlier work, didn't it? The Ultimate Guide to Anal Sex for Women.
Exactly.
Mm,
Which really, signaled there was a need for this kind of straightforward info back then.
definitely.
So if you've ever been curious about the possibilities, you're definitely in the right place.
Yeah, and what's so interesting about this whole journey is how the conversation itself has changed, right?
Totally.
Taormino talks about experiencing this firsthand. Her first book on anal sex was, what, 1998?
Yeah, sounds about right.
And back then, I mean, the topic was way more underground. But by the time this guide came out,
Things have shifted.
massively.
Yeah.
As she points out, you were starting to see discussions pop up in, like, mainstream magazines, Redbook, Cosmopolitan.
Marie Claire, yeah. And even TV shows.
Right. Sex and the City, The Sopranos. It was becoming less taboo.
So our goal with this deep dive is really to give you, the listener, a clear and pretty comprehensive understanding of the options.
Moving beyond maybe some outdated ideas or, hesitations people might have.
Exactly. Our mission is to really unpack the variety and the little details, the nuances of these positions that Taormino lays out.
We'll go from the basics.
Yeah, the foundational stuff, and then into some of the, let's say, more adventurous options, looking at what works well, what might be a bit trickier.
And even some fun twists, maybe.
For sure, to keep things exciting. Okay, so to get started, let's really understand the basics, the anatomy involved, and how pleasure actually works here.
Right. Chapter 1 of the guide gives us that foundation. It looks at the anatomy, and what really stands out is the sheer density of nerve endings in the anus.
For both men and women, right?
Right. For both men and women, yeah. Taormino emphasizes that the opening itself and also that initial part of the anal canal, they're just incredibly rich in these nerve receptors.
Which explains a lot.
It explains why touch and pressure in this area can be, so intensely pleasurable for many people. That's really a key thing to get right from the start.
Okay, and let's tackle a common concern pretty much head on.
The hemorrhoid thing.
Yeah, you often hear that anal sex causes hemorrhoids. But the guide clarifies that, well, it can certainly aggravate them if they're already there.
Right, it doesn't cause them.
Exactly. Hemorrhoids are essentially like swollen blood vessels around the anal opening,
Right.
often linked to other things like straining or pregnancy.
So it's important to separate that cause and effect as a really crucial clarification, actually.
Definitely.
The book also touches on the different sensations, for the partner being penetrated versus the partner doing the penetrating.
Okay, yeah.
For the receptive partner, that feeling of fullness, the tightness, that can be really arousing for a lot of people. And for the penetrative partner, well, depending on the position, there can be direct stimulation of the prostate gland in men.
Which is a major pleasure zone.
A significant source of pleasure, absolutely. Understanding these different potential sensations, it can really enhance the whole experience for both people.
And this is where it gets really interesting for me. Taormino also digs into the emotional and psychological side of things.
Yeah, she does.
She talks about this feeling of like venturing into a new frontier sexually.
That excitement.
Yeah, that sense of excitement and discovery in a relationship. But, and this is key, underlying all of it,
Trust.
the absolute necessity of trust and really open communication between partners. That sense of, shared exploration and vulnerability can be really powerful.
Absolutely. And chapter 2 digs right into that communication.
Yeah.
Taormino stresses just how fundamental it is to be able to openly talk about desires, boundaries, maybe any past negative experiences someone's had.
Creates that safety net, right?
Exactly. It creates that sense of safety and comfort that lets you actually explore without pressure or anxiety. It's all about building that mutual understanding first.
Okay, so communication is sorted. Then we get into the practical stuff preparation.
Chapter 3.
Chapter 3 gives guidance on hygiene, recommends gentle washing. And interestingly, the guide mentions some people use warm water enemas.
Yeah, but it strongly advises against regular douching.
Right. Why the difference there? What's the reasoning?
Well, the key difference seems to be about disrupting the body's natural balance. Regular douching can actually upset the healthy bacteria that are supposed to be there.
Ah, okay. Makes sense.
The guide also gives really thorough advice on lubrication, which is just essential. Absolutely essential for comfortable anal sex.
Non-negotiable, really.
Totally. Water-based or silicone-based lubes are highly recommended, they work well, and crucially, they're safe to use with latex condoms.
Right, and the oil-based ones get a clear warning.
Big warning, because they can break down latex condoms, which obviously increases STI risk.
And can cause other issues, too.
Yeah, potentially contribute to vaginal infections as well. So stick to water or silicone.
Got it. And the guide also mentions desensitizing lubes briefly.
It does, yeah. And the advice is basically steer clear.
Why is that?
Well, the thinking is that feeling and sensation are actually part of the pleasure, right? Numbing things can really take away from the experience.
Okay, so you miss out. And obviously, safer sex practices are woven throughout all this.
Constantly. Strong emphasis on using condoms to prevent STI transmission. The risks are real.
Okay, so moving into Chapter 4, the penetration primer. This is for anyone maybe new to anal sex.
Exactly. The advice is all about taking things very, very slowly, being incredibly gentle. The guide really emphasizes warming up first, external stimulation, then a very gradual entry.
And using fingers first is recommended.
Specifically recommends starting with fingers, yeah. Stresses clean, well-maintained nails, or even using gloves.
Good tip.
Plus plenty of lube, obviously, and constant open communication about how everything feels, checking in.
Right. And then when it comes to actual intercourse.
Same principle. Start slow, keep the initial penetrations shallow. Really let the receptive partner guide the pace and communicate their comfort level.
It just makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You want those first experiences, and really all experiences, to be positive.
Absolutely. Enjoyable. And the guide even includes specific tips for partners who are more well-endowed.
Oh, interesting. What does it suggest?
Positions like tailgate, spooning, and reverse cowgirl are mentioned.
Why those specifically?
Because they tend to give the receptive partner more control over the depth of penetration.
Control is key there.
Definitely. And for anyone curious about double penetration, the book acknowledges it, says it requires flexibility, maybe using a dildo.
And patience?
And again, a very slow, communicative approach, making sure everyone's comfortable and enjoying it.
Okay, now we're getting into the actual positions. Chapter 5, beginner and basic positions. Let's start with missionary and upright missionary.
Okay, so the pros here are pretty clear. Intimacy, you can kiss, that face-to-face connection.
Yeah, the classic benefits.
But the angles for, say, deeper thrusting can be a bit limited in basic missionary.
But there are variations.
Taormino offers variations, yeah. Ways to potentially increase G-spot stimulation for the receptive partner, or maybe achieve deeper penetration if that's what you both want.
Okay, then there's cowgirl, receptive partner on top.
Right. Advantages are clear again.
Yeah.
The person on top has total control, depth, pace, everything.
And potentially good for G-spot stimulation.
For some, yes, absolutely. Potential downsides, maybe discomfort depending on penis size or curve. And some people might feel a bit self-conscious in that position.
Yeah, I can see that.
The guide also mentions a froggy variation,
Froggy.
where the top partner kind of crouches on their feet instead of kneeling.
Huh, interesting twist. Okay, what about spooning and spoon and fork?
These are highlighted as really great options for deeper but often gentler penetration.
And still intimate.
Very intimate, yeah. Strong sense of closeness. And generally, it's a more relaxed, less physically demanding position for both partners. That can be a real plus.
Definitely. Okay, rounding out the beginner stuff. Doggy style and doggy angle.
Right. These rear entry positions, super popular, often allow for pretty deep penetration.
And easy clitoral access.
Yeah, can provide easy access for manual clitoral stimulation, but Taormino points out face-to-face communication is harder.
True.
And the penetrative partner really needs to be mindful. Control the thrusting, don't go too hard or too duck too quickly.
Good advice. Is there more on that?
There's even a helpful little section on the doggy-style do's and don'ts to help navigate it effectively.
Nice. Okay, so now if you're looking to, spice things up, Chapter 7 is positions to spice up your repertoire.
Yeah, moving beyond the basics.
Let's maybe explore a couple of examples here. Reverse cowgirl.
Okay, so partner on top, but facing away this time.
Right. What's the benefit?
It can offer a completely different angle of penetration. And for many, it gives a more intense sensation, potentially on the G-spot.
Wow, just reversing it changes things that much.
It's fascinating, isn't it, how simply changing the orientation can drastically alter the physical sensations and even the dynamic between partners?
Yep.
And throughout this chapter, Taormino often includes these little giving it good and getting it good tips for each position.
Oh, practical advice.
Really practical tips for both partners, yeah. How to maximize pleasure in that specific position.
Cool. Okay, another one, tailgate.
Tailgate. So receptive partner lies flat on their stomach, legs maybe slightly spread. Penetrative partner enters from behind.
Okay, I can picture that.
Taormino notes this can offer a, quote, fantastic view, and potentially the deepest penetration, especially maybe for someone with a longer penis. So depending on anatomy and what you're after, could be a good one.
Right. Interesting. And then there's one called yab-yum.
Yab-yum. Yeah. This is described as a classic tantric sex position. Partners face each other, often with legs intertwined.
Tantric. So there's history there.
There is. Taormino actually includes a little history lesson box here. Explains yab-yum is a Tibetan term, means father-mother.
Wow.
And it's considered like an ideal position in tantric practice for aligning chakras, promoting deep connection.
That's fascinating context. Okay, one more from this section maybe. Lap dance.
Lap dance. Receptive partner sits on the other's lap, but facing away.
Facing away again.
Yeah. This can allow for a different range of motion. Might be particularly good if both partners can comfortably reach the floor, for stability and leverage.
Gotcha. These examples really do show the sheer variety beyond just missionary or doggy.
Absolutely. And the guide does a great job outlining the unique benefits, potential considerations for each, letting you kind of see what might appeal.
Okay, so chapter 10 then takes us into advanced positions.
Right, upping the ante a bit.
Taormino prefaces this by saying these often need more strength, flexibility.
Yeah, greater degree of strength, flexibility, coordination. Think positions like Superman.
Superman. How does that work?
Okay, so one partner sits on the edge of a bed or chair. The other stands and penetrates while the seated partner holds onto their neck and shoulders for support.
Whoa, okay. Definitely sounds more athletic.
Right. Or Batman, which is basically a variation where the seated partner faces away instead.
Batman, okay.
These more challenging positions, they can offer really unique, intense angles and depths.
But maybe not for long.
Might not be sustainable for long periods, yeah. And probably not suitable for everyone's physical abilities. Really underscores the need for communication and knowing your bodies.
Absolutely. What else is in the advanced section?
We also see things like inverted spider.
Inverted spider sounds complex.
Receptive partner on their back, legs raised and supported perhaps by their own shoulders, requires flexibility.
Wow.
And flying missionary, which, as the name kind of playfully suggests, is a more acrobatic, elevated take on traditional missionary.
Okay, so these advanced ones really show the potential for creativity.
For sure. Though, as Taormino emphasizes, again, open communication and being really aware of comfort levels are even more critical here.
It's all about that shared adventure, making sure everyone's still enjoying it.
Exactly.
Now, let's make sure we don't forget the guys. Chapter 11 talks about anal pleasure, specifically for men.
Yes, very important. It explains that the anal area in men also has that significant concentration of nerve endings we talked about earlier.
Right.
And importantly, it discusses prostate stimulation, which can happen through anal play and can be an incredibly intense source of pleasure for many men.
So it's definitely not just a receptive experience for women.
Not at all. Taormino even briefly introduces prostate toys, like the Aneros brand, which are specifically designed to target that internal area.
Okay.
This chapter is really key in highlighting that anal pleasure isn't exclusive to one gender. Men can get significant enjoyment, too.
Good point. And for folks interested in exploring strap-on play, Chapter 12 covers that.
Provides a really comprehensive overview, yeah.
Yeah.
Discusses different harness types, how to use them effectively.
Does she recommend specific ones?
She does. It features Tristan's harness picks, lists specific brands and models she likes, Aslan leather principal harness, Sport Sheets Peekaboo clear harness, gives people some trusted starting points if they're curious.
That's helpful.
And Taormino also connects this back to the positions we've already discussed. Points out which ones work well for strap-on sex.
Like which ones?
Things like missionary, cowgirl, doggy style, tailgate, lap dance, even that flying missionary we mentioned. It provides a familiar framework for people wanting to try strap-ons.
That makes it less daunting, maybe. Okay, so Chapter 13, finding the right positions. This kind of brings it all together.
Exactly. It ties everything together nicely, summarizes the key things to consider when you're experimenting.
Like what?
Like, personal comfort, obviously.
Yeah.
Maintaining that open communication, the angle and depth of penetration you're looking for, who's on top, who's receiving. It all plays a part.
So finding what works best for you and your partner.
That's the crucial takeaway. There is no single best position. It's totally subjective. Depends on individual preferences, body types,
And ultimately just what feels good.
what feels pleasurable and enjoyable for both partners involved. It's about finding that mutual satisfaction.
Okay. Now, to add a slightly different flavor, the book includes these sections called Words to Inspire You.
Yeah, throughout the book, short, sexy stories by different authors. Allison Tyler, M. Christian, Rachel Kramer Bussell.
Right. Do you remember any examples?
Well, Allison Tyler's story, Practice Makes Perfect, apparently weaves in this intriguing detail about a coded date book as part of their, sexual exploration.
Huh. Interesting narrative touch.
Yeah, these little stories, they offer a kind of fun, relatable way to see some of the concepts discussed in the guide maybe brought to life.
Like seeing theory and practice, sort of.
Exactly. M. Christian's story, Wink, apparently really underscores that importance of direct, clear communication and figuring out what feels good. And Rachel Kramer Bussell's Win or Lose touches on discovering unexpected pleasure through just being open and experimenting.
Nice little additions.
Yeah.
Okay, so finally, Chapter 15 offers some final thoughts.
Yeah, where Taormino basically revisits the book's main goal, trying to broaden perspectives on anal pleasure, encourage open-minded experimentation for those who are curious.
And there's a resource guide, too.
Ends with a really valuable resource guide, yeah. Lists books, videos, websites, even specific sex shops for anyone who wants to explore even further.
Great. So as we kind of wrap up our deep dive into Tristan Taormino's guide here, what's the main takeaway?
I think the key takeaway is pretty clear. The world of anal sex positions is just incredibly vast. It offers a huge wealth of possibilities.
Something for everyone, maybe.
Truly seems like there's something for everyone who's willing to approach it with, well, those key ingredients: open communication, thoughtful preparation.
And that spirit of adventure?
And a spirit of adventure and mutual exploration, yeah.
Absolutely. And hopefully, by taking the time to understand the fundamentals, explore these different options we've talked about, you, our listener, can really enhance your own sexual experiences.
Potentially discover entirely new and exciting ways to find pleasure.
Yeah. Which leads to maybe a final thought for people to consider.
Okay.
How might taking that same level of open communication, that same maybe playful willingness to experiment,
Yeah.
how might applying that not just to anal play, but to all aspects of your sexual life, how might that potentially lead to deeper intimacy?
Or discovering unexpected sources of pleasure with your partner, maybe in areas you hadn't considered.
Exactly. What preconceived notions might you find are actually worth challenging in your own experiences as you explore your sexuality further?
That's a really interesting question to leave people with.